Alternative Reality, Volume 1, Chapter 19. Hidden in the thickness of the flora around her, Willow observed her target of interest with a sharp glare. A scrawny-looking man in dark robes, ordering around a bunch of disfigured creatures that crawled around like the vermin that they were. She managed to count 10 of them, but it was hard to be sure since most of them looked very similar. They kept on coming in and out of a nearby cave entrance, at the very edge of the forest, every single one carrying bags of loot, which they emptied out not too far from their point of exit. While those figures slaved about, Willow turned her gaze to another individual. Right next to the robed figure stood a tall, well-armored guy with manners befitting his most likely low descent. He stood there with zero grace, leaning on one leg, a hand ever on the move to scratch some phantom itch, mouth moving with words that she couldn't hear nor wanted to. Did not seem like the two got along very well, as at one point the robed figure started throwing fireballs at his colleague, though most of them were aimed under his armored feet instead of higher up. As Willow observed that circus act, someone approached her. Not too hard to notice, as his incompetence in stealth could be heard a mile back. He managed to rustle every grove and stepped on every branch by the time the soldier came into Willow's view. Standard onion military gear. A full helm with miniature slits for the eyes to make it that much harder to go around in the dark, and a short sword, because the damn kingdom was probably too cheap for a long one. He looked around while hunching over ever so slightly, presumably trying to pinpoint Willow's exact location. Who was crouching barely a meter away? Of course, one can't blame the soldier too much. Willow was in her usual camouflage gear, its distinctive piece being a hooded dark green cape that covered most of her. Even her longbow that she held in hand didn't stand out, its dark shade merging well with either the ground or the trees. Especially with how late it was, as the sun slowly dipped over the horizon, its rays no longer able to reach the dark reaches of the forest, to get through its thick canopy. Either way, after a minute or so of standing around, the soldier finally noticed Willow. "Oh, there you are. Did not see you there. Quite a camouflaging skill you have. Good thing we brought you along," he then said eccentrically, once again displaying his impaired awareness of his surroundings, or the situation he was in. "My men are getting quite restless. When are we going in? We didn't travel here all the way from our station just to swat at insects." Willow glanced at the robed figure, making sure he didn't hear anything. Luckily enough, he was still busy chasing around his dear friend. She then glared at the soldier and opened her mouth to say something, but closed it soon after deciding against it. A heavy sigh escaped her. People say that beautiful women have it easy. Well, for some reason Willow had it anything but easy. A couple of days back, she managed to die while on an easy quest. One that was supposed to be over and done with quickly enough. Yet things took a turn for the worse. She lost a whole day of gaming time, her favorite dagger, and almost failed the quest. Luckily enough though, the quest giver bought her lie and believed that all the bandits died off. More good news, He gave a follow-up quest to investigate what happened and bring him the magician whose participation in the whole activity was not anticipated. Seems like the Church of Pedro was looking for the guy. Willow smiled sinisterly. As annoying as it was, she could use this opportunity to get back at the damn magician. Once it was done with, though, she planned to drop the damn quest chain altogether. Dealing with these numbskulls was bad for her complexion, and earning a warm spot in the kingdom's military was just not worth it anymore. Especially if she'd need to deal with guys like Barry over here. Willow gave the soldier another look. No matter the angle, the fellow reminded her of his predecessor. Might be the identical getup, the baseless confidence, a complete lack of tact, or her previous experience with their bunch. Either way, she just couldn't help but dislike him. Soon enough. Go get your boys. We'll get them once the sun sets. Another sigh. For a moment, she felt like in one of those Western movies she watched every now and again. Showdown at sundown. Might as well end it in a cliché way. Once that was done, she turned to stare at her target again. A scrawny, perpetually grumpy mage. For some reason, things were actually going his way. Living proof that looks did not dictate your success in life. Willow glared at him. Bloodshot eyes, sunken cheeks, a balding head with erratic blotches of hair. It was quite unsettling how unpleasant he was to look upon. Yet here he was, alive and well after their last encounter. Better than well. Numerous minions, a dependable if uncivilized-looking companion, a ton of loot. How did he do it? What was his trick? If not for current circumstances, Willow would gladly approach him, ask, and eventually lure away all of his success right from under his nose. Surely, a fellow like that would be too socially inept to be much of a challenge. Regrettably, circumstances did not permit Willow to try out her gifts. She slowly got up and notched an arrow in her bow. Companions were already here. 5 armed soldiers, all with the same standard gear. Every single one anxious like little children. Before the 5 could charge off on their own, screaming like madmen for whatever reason, which they definitely do, Willow decided to be the one to initiate the fight this time. Slowly, she pulled back the arrow and aimed carefully before releasing it together with her breath. A stream of light trailed behind the arrow's flight as it struck the magician's shoulder like a laser-guided missile, knocking the fella off his feet. A loud shout filled with pain and swear words followed soon after, only to be joined in by the combined roar coming from the charging onion soldiers, who sprinted right into the fray like headless chickens. See? Willow knew this was going to happen. Like simple-minded fools that they were, the group went directly for the fallen magician, their weapons brandished above head like caveman clubs. They met stiff resistance before getting to the target, however. Once Willow's primary target received damage, not only did his companion draw his sword, but so did the beleaguered porters as they quickly dropped the bags they were hauling and scurried over to the fight in an awkward gait. 3 of them were not too far from the loot pile, while 7 more emerged from the cave exit soon enough. Composed, with no haste in sight, Willow loosed arrows one by one in an attempt to hamper their movements. Yet to her surprise, none of her tricks worked. Usually, when you shoot a person in the knee, he will drop to the floor and will at least have the decency to stay there for a while. Did not work as planned on these guys though. Some of them didn't even slow down after being shot, which might be because pinpointing a knee on those things was a head scratcher. Now that they were close enough to get a better look at it, she noticed that the creatures were nothing more than moving bags of meat. Remains of goblins or similar looking creatures, their bodies oozing and dripping with various fluids, limbs twisted and deformed. That explained the awkward gait. Willow breathed out in relief. She didn't want to be caught making fun of the disabled, after all. Lumbering monsters such as that were free game as far as she was concerned. It was, however, a cause of some problems. Not only were they hard to take care of, she noticed that the mage wasn't knocked out either, as the open field before her brightened up. One of her companions was just set on fire. Willow clicked her tongue in annoyance. She could no longer count the number of times she asked those buffoons to take off their cloaks. Now they had to learn the hard way. Most likely, their last lesson ever. Harsh life. Since the magician seemed to do most of the damage, Willow shot a few more arrows at him. That is, until she noticed his companion, slicing an onion soldier in half after a single swing of the sword. Not only that, but the fire-wielding fellow did not seem to react to being struck by arrows as much anymore, as if the damage done wasn't as significant as before. Sure, the first arrow fired had a bonus to its damage, due to it being a surprise hit. That, and it was a skill-based attack. Aimed arrow was its name, with increased accuracy and damage done. Alternative reality offered a very welcome helping hand in wielding a bow. It's not like every person here was a born archer. Even if Willow was exceptionally skilled and a quick learner, she didn't hesitate to use any assistance offered. Still, regardless of the user's skill, the amount of reliance on the system's help, or even her mood, ranged attacks were supposed to do incredible damage to unarmored individuals. This whole situation caused icy droplets of sweat to run down Willow's back. By now, an unwelcome premonition started to form inside her head. 2 of her companions were already dead, while one more was being overrun by a swarm of chillingly ugly creatures. Any sane person would have ran by now. Yet, revenge was a dish too tempting to refuse. So Willow bit her lip and decided to focus only on the magician, no matter what. Well, at least until the sword-swinging madman decided to choose her as his next slicing board. Because that's exactly what happened when that itchy lunatic cut apart and finished off another onion soldier. Circumstances forced her to go back on her commitment really quick. Willow aimed one last spiteful arrow at her precious balding target. Yet before she could release it, the bastard hid behind a pile of minions, who were still busy disemboweling the carcass of one of the soldiers. Clicking her tongue, she then quickly re-aimed and released it at the approaching foe. Bullseye. The shot struck his leg, which should have stopped him in his tracks. Yet all it did was slow him down for a few moments. only until he broke off the arrow shaft, without even bothering to dig out the projectile out of his appendage. Tough bastard, that one. What in Pedro's name has she gotten herself into? Another arrow, notch, aim, and a fireball hit her cape. Again. Deja vu was smacking Willow right across the face as she started running around trying to undo the latch that held the cape in place with fumbling fingers. You have received 35 fire-based magic damage. Goddamn fire. A series of swear words were running through Willow's head, yet before she could manage to get the damn thing off, a cold, painful sensation ran through her back. Seems like the mage's companion finally caught up, slicing Willow's back open like a pack of chips. Critical hit. You have received 1,437 physical damage. You have received 45 black magic base damage. What a load of crap. That hit alone lowered her health by almost half of her total health pool. Willow quickly activated one of her standard skills that enhanced her jumping power several-fold for 2 seconds. Without wasting a single one, she jumped, as far away from that macho freak as possible. While in the air, she readied another arrow and was ready to release, if not for the tree trunk that appeared at the worst time just to get in her way. Really, everything was against her today. She struck it with a grunt and tumbled to the ground in a truly undignified manner. At the time, jumping away to disengage the enemy seemed like a good idea, but Willow forgot that she was on the very edge of a forest. She was sort of lucky she got as far as she did. Every second counts, right? Unfortunately for her, another fireball then struck her shoulder just as she was about to regain her footing and flee. Could things get any worse than this? You have received 257 fire-based magic damage. You have received 65 fire-based magic damage. Yes, they could. Pain was not a very loved feature of alternative reality, especially so when life inside virtual reality couldn't have been more authentic. And one could live it as if there were no differences between the two realities. There were some exceptions, of course, and pain was one of them, since the feature's authenticity was lowered significantly when comparing to real life. Still, feeling that stinging, persistent pain spread over your shoulder and growing ever stronger wasn't something you'd like to experience any day. Nor the throbbing pain of having your back sliced open. Not even with reduced pain. Well, unless you're some hardcore masochist. Truth be told, there were certain clubs for people like that within alternative reality. Feel free to feel unsettled. Either way, as fire blossomed on her, Willow was reduced to a panicking mess as she tried to beat it out, and it ended up being a very easy target for whoever was closest. Which, in this case, was the blade-wielding, arrow-shrugging-off lunatic that performed the finishing blow and put Willow out of her misery in one swift strike. Before it all went dark, a sarcastic thought of being thankful for at least not wasting time crossed Willow's mind. You have died. She was definitely done with the military and their suicide missions.